Supreme Court. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. In the courtroom, I'm gonna let it shine. All in the courtroom, I'm gonna let it shine. All in the courtroom, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Today in my capital, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, today in our capital, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, today in our capital, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. The LGBT riot, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, for LGBT riot, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, for LGBT riot, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
But I just want to make sure I'm speaking it to him. And then
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Good morning.
Shall overcome.
Okay, it's up. Yeah, so I guess you got to turn it out that way. It's all the way out.
We shall overcome someday. I can't go that high. Oh, dear.
Trying to save my voice here.
I do believe. I do believe. We shall overcome someday.
We are here for this historic day. Let us begin this day with prayer. Would you bow?
Let us make some noise on this historic day!
Testing, testing.
There you go.
Okay.
Right up your mouth and shout.
Trans rights are human rights. 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 Trans rights are human rights.
We thank you all for coming out on this morning. Let us begin this day with prayer. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, hear the prayers and words of your people on today. For we are in the midst of a crisis of conscience and a dismantling of our morals. Guide the hearts of those who lead and make decisions on behalf of others. Help them to search for what is right and just on today. God, we pray for those who are brokenhearted and in need of healing. Grant them healing and hope on today. We pray for those who are lost due to severed family ties, fallen friendships. Help them find their way on today. We pray for those who have determined their life is not worth living due to hostility and hatred. Fill them with purpose and peace on today. We pray for those who shed tears each day due to fear of being harmed or murdered. Wrap them in your loving arms while protecting them from danger seen and unseen. We are thankful that we have all been created in your image and likeness. Thank you, God, for creating some of us tall, some of us short, some of us white, some of us black and brown. creating some of us bisexual, some of us androgynous, some of us gay, some of us lesbian, blessing some of us to be transgender and some to be allies. There is purpose and destiny in who we are individually and collectively.
Yes.
God grant us the liberty to live authentically in all spaces and places and to love truthfully wherever we are. We shall reflect you and your love in all that we do. Oh God, I ask that you would cover the minds and hearts of those justices hearing the arguments on today. Let the spirits of hope, power, justice, and equality walk through the hallowed halls of the court building, ring from the courthouse to the White House. God calls workplaces all over the land to be places of diversity, opportunity, and professionalism. Cover the gifts, talents, skills, and abilities of those who identify as LGBT. Don't allow us to be stripped of our dignity, raped of our regard, castrated of our character due to the phobias and isms of others. Strike down marginalization of queer and transgender people. Strike down disenfranchisement of bisexual and non-binary people. Strike down dehumanization of lesbian and gay men and women. Strike down demonization of the LGBT community by those who don't understand your creation or simply hate differences. God of infinite power and wisdom, release us from the stench of hatred. Deliver us from the sting of judgmentalism. Liberate us from the ugliness of supremacy. Free us from the bankruptcy of morals and values. Yes. Remove us from the comfortability of heterosexism and redeem us from divisions and dividers. Have your way, O Lord, and do what no other power can do. Let it be your decision and not that of the humans. Let us hear your voice and not those of the justices. Let us see you and understand your love for your creation instead of political agendas. We need you, God, to move upon these, your appointed and elected. Give the attorneys the words to say on today and the justices' ears to hear. Allow justice to prevail and resound throughout the land. Power to the people. Hope and love to those in the LGBT community, for we have nothing to lose but our chains. Yes. May we forever stand true to our God and true to who God has created us to be. This is my prayer I lift before these your creation, O God, on today. Let all of those who are in attendance shout, Amen. Amen. Amen.
And a woman. Amen. My name is Reverend Dr. Aaron Wade, and I represent the United Church of Christ, and in particular the Community Church of Washington, D.C., United Church of Christ. It's important that when we gather for such a time as this, that we remember why. That we remember why we stand up, that we remember why we dare to speak truth to power. It's important that we remind ourselves that all humanity deserves dignity, equality, and respect. It's important that we remind our nation of her moral obligation to each of her citizens, that we speak to prick the moral consciousness of our nation, reminding her that etched in her founding documents are moral cords that say, we believe all of humanity has been endowed with certain unalienable rights. It's important that we remember when we gather. So today, I'm going to ask that we affirm that which we believe. I'm going to state some affirmations, and I'm going to ask you to just holler out loud with me, we believe. So we believe. We believe that everyone has the right to be who they are. We believe. Just say we believe. We believe that people should be able to be their authentic selves, to have full work and the capacity to work. We believe that no one should have to fear that they will be fired just because of who they are. We believe that everyone needs a way to support themselves and their families. We believe that transgender people belong everywhere, fully embraced and welcomed. We believe that discrimination against anyone is wrong. We believe that our rights should not be rolled back. We believe that people all across America should be able to love their families, love their friends, love their partners and colleagues, and not be discriminated against. We believe.
We believe.
We believe that love shall win. We believe.
We believe.
That love will win. We believe.
We believe.
That love will win.
Okay, she's not here.
Lulu?
Oh,
We're going to invite Lulu up at this time. It's okay. We have another man.
we have a sound system that's, we're getting, yeah. Okay. Well, ask everyone to be patient for just a second. We'll have the sound system in a minute.
So, is that one louder? Oh, that one is louder. So let's take that one.
Charlotte, bring Jody this way. Yes.
Wow, it says thunder.
You know Lala? Yeah. Lala, you and Claire? We went to high school together. Or no, we went to
Everything together. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm gonna need y'all to be. We waited over there, and y'all had all this energy. Come on, hello, good morning. Honey, I've been up. I came all the way from New York. I've been up since 6 o'clock. I don't do this. You know how much alone it took me to get on this cookie? I'm a black trans woman, honey. And I got up over here because I felt it was important to be here. And so I need all of you to have that same energy all day. Do not worry about the hecklers or all these other folks that are using their religious hate. We ain't going to engage in that today. But what we're going to engage is in love. Because love will save the day. Love is going to save the day for Amy Stevens on today. Love is going to save the day for every LGBTQ person who has ever been persecuted. Love is going to save the day in this space because we're going to love on each other and we're going to put such a love energy in this air that no matter what they say over there, no matter what they try to do today, say with me that love is going to save the day.
Love is going to save the day.
We came today. We've been fighting since 50 years of Stonewall. We ain't never going to stop fighting. But we're here today to show up like we always do. To show up for the ones who couldn't be here today, to show up for whatever reasons. But we always show up. And we will continue to show up. No matter what that decision will be when we get this decision, we will continue to fight. And if the Lord says we are the victors of this decision, we're going to have to fight some more. That's right. But don't leave here today and look at all these people if you don't find somebody to connect with. Because what? Love will do what? Save the day. Love will save the day and love will win. So, when you leave and go back to your neighborhoods, you talk to all your neighbors about the Supreme Court case and why they didn't show up. You go down to your school board and make sure that that school is making sure that trans folks are able to go in school and have access to that. Yes. You go vote the right DAs into office. They don't stop at the Supreme Court.
That's right.
You go down to your senators and you have conversations with them. Yes. And you go down to your churches in your neighborhood, yes, and talk to them and denounce this kind of hate. Because love will save the day. So we're going to move forward in that. I want everyone who is speaking today, I challenge you to speak from your heart and your soul. This ain't about politics today. The legal team handle that inside. Yes. The world needs to see our hearts and our souls, that we love just like everyone else. We deserve to work just like everyone else. And oh yes, we can vote your beep out just like anybody else. I'm up here with the clergy, so I gotta, I ain't gonna do all that today. My mother's a pastor, so she'll get me. But I just want us to love. I just love this energy. I'm so blessed to be here. I am so blessed to be here standing in all my black trans brilliance. All of that for all of you. But I have one more chant that I'm going to watch your way, right? So it's a, call and response. This is one of my, I love and see if you all know it. And I want you to say it so loud so those beautiful people behind us can know this is just the beginning, honey. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love each other and protect each other.
We must love each other and protect each other.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
And remember, like I said, love will save the day. Thank you. Come on, Jody. Keep the momentum going. Fix the mic. Mic check, mic check.
Big breath. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Okay. We'll be up.
All right, gang. Liz, who's running this show, says, can everyone take just one step backwards?
And a big
Just
breath.
And one big breath.
breath.
Just give us a little more space up here if you could.
We got speakers trying to get through this.
We got a few speakers trying to get over to stage right, so thank you.
And if y'all back up, they gotta back up.
But we'll take your enthusiasm. Good morning. I'm Jody Winterhoff with the Human Rights Campaign. And I'm proud to represent the largest LGBTQ civil rights organization, but I'm even prouder to stand here with you today. I want to thank the ACLU for their leadership on these cases. I particularly want to thank Liz Welch, who has been rounding us up out here. Let's give a big shout out for the ACLU. The three cases in the court today illustrate the type of discrimination that thousands of LGBTQ people face every day in this country. At HRC, we hear from folks who are fired, harassed, humiliated by their employers and co-workers simply because they are a member of the LGBTQ community, simply for who they are and whom they love. From the Deep South to my home state of Iowa, we know that not only does discrimination happen, but it happens a lot, and with tragic consequences for individuals and their families. This discrimination is not only wrong, it's illegal. The Supreme Court has the chance to affirm these protections that so many federal courts, state legislatures, businesses, and the American people, for that matter, have already put into practice. Our nation's biggest leaders in business have also recognized that discrimination just does not make sense for their bottom line nor their people and customers. In fact, 206 companies filed an amicus brief supporting today's plaintiffs and urging the court to recognize these protections. But I'll tell you this, folks who are anti-equality want the Supreme Court and the American people to believe that these protections are new, that we're asking for something radical and unprecedented. Nothing could be further from the truth. Federal courts across the country in places like Georgia and Illinois have determined definitively when you fire someone because they are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, you have broken the law. It's critical that the Supreme Court respect this precedent and allow Title VII to live up to what it was designed to do, end discrimination on the job. Yeah. The opponents of equality and freedom in this country want a society in which LGBTQ people can be married on Sunday but fired on Monday, solely based on their sexual orientation and gender identity. Those who choose discrimination have a fundamentally different vision for this country. Amy Stevens was going to work and wanted to live her life authentically. Donald Zarda was doing what he loved, teaching skydiving. And Gerald Bostock devoted his career to the bettering of his community and children in those communities. At the end of the day, folks simply trying to have their lives and live their American dream were discriminated against. The law says we can and should be able to do these things as LGBTQ Americans, live our lives and have our dreams. We are here for all people who refuse to accept that an individual's authentic identity is a threat to any workplace. We are here for all workers. We are here for their families. And let me tell you this, and I want to hear from you loud and clear. Will you fight for our protections not to be rolled back by the courts or anybody else in this country? Tell me a yes. Yes! Will you fight for the Amys and Geralds and Donalds and others in this country who just want to have their lives and their dreams? Give me a yes. Yes! And will you fight to pass protections like the Equality Act to enshrine these protections forever? And we will not have to stand on the Supreme Court steps and fight again. Will you give me a yes? Yes! And will you show up time and again? Look, I'm not 25 anymore. I look around this crowd. Some of you have been here before. Will you show up again to fight for our protections every day until we have full equality in this country? Give me a yes. Yes. Thank you so much, and thanks the ACLU.
All right, DC, we have got Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who knows what it's like to fight for our rights. Please welcome Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, a champion for our community and progress across the country. I'll hold it for you.
You're where you need to be. I don't know if the court can hear you, but I am here this morning to represent the many members of Congress who can't be here because Congress is on recess.
Mic's coming. There's a mic coming.
You're good.
Congress is on recess, but I am a member of the Equality Caucus, and I am here speaking for the dozens of members of the Equality Caucus. I am also a member of the Transgender Equality Task Force. And of these three cases, the first of these three is a transgender case. Now, we understand that the House has already passed the Equality Act. And that would bar discrimination across the board, not only in employment, but in housing, in public accommodations, and in all aspects of American life, the way we bar discrimination against other people in all aspects of American life. But I'm here to tell the court that the work has already been done if the court would only look at its own precedents. Along with 150 members of Congress, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi and the minority leader of the Senate, we have ourselves filed an amicus brief with this court to tell the court that existing law, the law that the court will be interpreting, already bars discrimination against the LGBTQ community. I am a former chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It is the law I administered, which is before the court today. I say out of my own expertise as well, that consistent with the court's traditions of broad interpretation of what we call remedial laws. Remedial laws are anti-discrimination laws. That's a classic remedial law. That gender and sex are inseparable from what we mean in Title VII when we say you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. So we are saying to the court today, look at your own precedents. The court has spoken.
No. These are too close to the microphone.
If the court follows its own precedents under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Law, that law which I interpreted, then it will find that LGBTQ people are already protected by our anti-discrimination laws. Do your job, Supreme Court.
Yes. Right. Yes. Thank you, Eleanor.
Okay.
Thank you so
I've turned this off. Oh, I'm next. Okay. Oh, Chris is here. Chris is next.
All right. Here you go.
cool. All right, can folks hear me? My name's Chris Hayashi, and I'm the Executive Director of the Transgender Law Center. We are the largest national trans-led organization advocating for a world in which all people are free to define themselves and their futures. As a trans person of color, I have lived my life in the movement for justice and rights for trans and gender non-communities for nearly 2 decades. We know that it's wrong for a boss to fire someone because of who they are. To say, you can't work here because you're transgender. We know that it's wrong for the White House to lobby the Supreme Court to push trans and queer people out of public life. And the Supreme Court justices know it too. For them to rule against years of legal precedent and green light discrimination against LGBT people would be a stark declaration that they are under Trump's thumb. Any independent court would see this for the illegal, crude, and cruel ploy that it is. We believe that our communities are stronger when we can be our authentic selves, work together, and show up for each other. Yet people in power and this administration keeps trying to divide us and force us out of our jobs, force us out of our homes simply because of who we are. Unacceptable. Today it's the Supreme Court and our freedom to work. But we have seen this again and again. The Muslim ban that kicked off the Trump presidency, the administration's targeting of Black migrants, including the recent death of Nyeba Abenwe, the deaths of Roxana Hernandez and Joanna Medine Leon at the hands of ICE and the CBP, the heightened exclusion, discrimination, and violence facing LGBT people with disabilities, and the murders of Malaysia Booker and B. Love Slater and so many Black trans women whose deaths were fueled by our government's cruelty and indifference. Again and again, this administration has targeted our communities for violence and discrimination. And again, we have rallied together to demonstrate the power of living freely, authentically, and in full support of each other. These Supreme Court cases, they are an opportunity for us to show up for each other. This is a moment for us, and particularly for Black and brown trans people, to show the strength of the movements we have built. Because no matter what the court says, we have always been here for each other, and we always will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everybody. I'm Mara Kiesling, the Executive Director of the National Center for Transgender Equality. Today, we have an opportunity to show America how strong trans and LGBTQ people can be. In just a few hours, the 9 Supreme Court justices, actually now, they have our rights in their hands. And for many, this is an alarming prospect. Many of the judges don't have the same worldview as we do. They have a worldview that doesn't even have trans people in it. But after 20 years of working to fulfill the dream of trans equality, I can tell you that we have never had a better chance to make our dream come true. While the work being done here can be the next step to making society more equitable for trans people, the most valuable work in our movement today is being done by each and every person like Amy Stevens. After a lifetime of shame and fear, all too familiar to so many of us trans people, Amy knew at 52 years old that she could take it no longer. She came out to her friends and family and then wrote a letter to her, thank you, Ray, if you would, actually, and wrote a letter to her employer that said, "On Monday, I will return to work as my true self. Amy Australia Stevens, inappropriate business attire. Every trans person here can tell you the immense courage and power it takes to be as vulnerable as Amy was on that day. And while we all gain so much and often save our very lives by living our truth, we also have a lot to lose, and we do lose a lot. We are not only rejected by employers, but sometimes by the people we love, people we trust, and people we rely on. Many of us lose our partners, our faith communities, even our homes in our quest to be ourselves. Every trans person has lost something, and 2 weeks after Amy submitted that letter, she lost her job. Trans people across the country can see themselves in Amy. They're seeing themselves in her strength and her perseverance. They're seeing themselves in her refusal to accept defeat, to back off her beliefs, or to compromise on her values and authenticity. Trans people know that when society closes door after door in your face, you have no choice but to kick it in and tell them the truth about who you are. Because when trans rights are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back! For decades before I came out, and as I began my advocacy 20 years ago, trans people were treated like society's dirty little secrets. If we were even talked about, it was never good. It was as a joke. It was in a way that was costing our lives. Many of us still are in a crisis of poverty, homelessness, and violence. And the violence this year alone has stolen 20 lives from communities and families across the country. The crisis of violence against trans women of color, particularly black trans women, is unconscionable and horrible, and it's something we need to get more attention on from our government, more attention on from our society, and more attention on from ourselves. It's why we can never mistake progress for victory, and we know all that too well. We know too well what it's like when we leave people behind. But through the power of every person's visibility and authenticity, we have and will move forward. How the justices rule in the next couple months on Amy's case will have a monumental impact on trans people. It's why we call on them simply to read the law as it was written, because no honest person can say Amy wasn't fired because of her sex. No judge, no lawmaker, no president can turn back the clock on the work every trans person has done. And while the marble columns of the court can seem insurmountable, the building behind me is a castle of glass compared to the power we all have when we live exactly who we are and how we have to. Thank you. Be strong, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Ray, so much.
Bless you. My friend the bishop is going to help me out here. I'm Ray Carey, and I'm the executive director of the National LGBTQ Task Force. The stakes in the cases argued behind us could not be higher. And although these cases are about employment, the implications are far, far-reaching for LGBTQ people, including our ability to have housing, to have health care, and to have an education. These cases are also about whether a boss gets to decide what it means to be a man or a woman. Does the fact that I'm wearing a suit make me less of a woman? No. Does my short haircut make me less of a woman? No. Does the fact that I am proudly married to another woman make me less of a woman? No. Who decides? Who decides what makes you or me or others who we are? Are we man enough, woman enough? We are human enough. We are who we are. The truth is, your gender identity and expression should only be defined by you. And non-conformity to someone else's stereotypes should never be allowed to be the reason you are fired from a job. For those of you who are here today who are straight, thank you, and these cases are about you too. Sex stereotyping is discrimination. Sexual harassment is discrimination. We are all here today to say no to discrimination against transgender, lesbian, bisexual, gay, or queer people. We deserve the same protections at work, at the hospital, when we seek an education, or when we apply for an apartment. We deserve to be protected. Today, we have come here together to say loud enough for the justices in the United Supreme Court to hear us. There should be no right to discriminate. Join me and drown them out. No right to discriminate. No right to discriminate. No right to discriminate. No right to discriminate. Thank you.
If you could hold it for me. Thank you. Hi, my name is Bria, and I'm here as a proud member of the LGBTQ community. I'm also a youth advocate member of Interact Advocates for Youth. We are the largest organization in the country on behalf of almost 2% of the population born intersex, with bodies that transcend the false binary of male and female. Intersex people aren't rare, they are just often invisible. Born with physical variations in chromosomes, reproductive organs, hormonal differences, and other traits that expand the common conception of biological sex. Fear of difference, fear of different bodies is what got Amy Stevens and others fired. This is the same fear that causes some to view healthy intersex children as something that needs to be corrected. For many of us, working to pay bills, to provide for ourselves and our family is a reality. What's also a reality is that our mere existence as LGBTQ people means that our basic human rights is being threatened. As a queer person who is also intersex, I am already at risk for discrimination because of my body's differences in sex characteristics. Every time I go into a job interview, there's that voice in the back of my head that reminds me we still are here fighting a fight that even our ability to work free from discrimination is still being a discussion today. That no matter how qualified I am, there might be a possibility that I might not get the job because I'm LGBTQ and intersex. This is a reality that many trans and queer people have to face. We are missing out on opportunities to showcase our greatness because we're being turned away before we even get a chance to. Even if we get a job, if we come out, we could be fired before we even get the chance to do the work. The rest of the world is missing out on opportunities to see and celebrate our greatness. My employer should not get to decide whether being LGBTQ or intersex is enough to deny my right to work. We must protect queer and trans people's right to work through the courts, through passing the Equality Act, through showing up for one another when others try to take our rights away. Today in 2019, we want the Supreme Court to hear us, to see us, and to know that stripping our rights away and stripping the rights away of LGBTQ people and intersex people is disgraceful, and it's a disgraceful step in the wrong direction. We want the Trump administration to know that trying to force us out of our jobs won't make us disappear and won't make us back down. We will continue to show up, and we will continue to speak until our voices are heard and our rights as human beings are validated, because we do belong here. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm super happy to be here. My name is Matthew Trent, and I'm here representing 22,000 people who work for Tapestry around the world. At Tapestry, we spend a lot of time talking about inclusivity and working to create a culture for our employees where everyone feels that they're not only equal, but where they belong. When we learn about current events that go against these values and impact our employees and their families, it's important for us to act. We all know discrimination is wrong, but we also know that 2/3 of LGBTQ+ people report some type of discrimination every day, and it's even worse for people of color. This is something that's important to my company, it's important to you, and it's also important to me. When I came out as a gay man almost 25 years ago, I never in a million years thought we would still be fighting to move forward, and quite honestly, I'm shocked that we're now fighting to make sure we don't go backwards. Our passion and belief in inclusivity clearly connects everyone who's here today, and it's amazing to be here with you. And collectively, we know we can make a bigger impact. LGBTQ plus individuals should be protected from discrimination under existing federal civil rights laws. And to show our support for the protection of this community, of our community, I am proud that Tapestry has joined over 200 companies to sign the Friend of the Court brief. And we hope this brief sends a powerful message to the U.S. Supreme Court that we believe our LGBTQ plus friends, family members, and colleagues not only feel equal, they're protected, and they feel the love that they deserve. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Hi there. My name is Blake DeVilliers, and I am a Vice President of Stores at Old Navy. I've been with Gap Inc. for about 25 years, and I am honored to represent Old Navy at this historic moment. When I started with the company, I was 21 years old. I was a college kid who just needed a summer job. I had also recently come out of the closet as gay. Little did I know I was building a career with a company that would allow me to become the confident, successful, happily and legally married man that I am today. My career with Old Navy has taken me all over the U.S. During my tenure, I've lived in some progressive places and some not progressive places, yet regardless of the societal biases that might have existed in some of those places around the LGBTQ community, I've never been treated any differently within our four walls at Old Navy. I've never had to worry that Old Navy might fire me for being gay, or if my husband Jared and I would receive health benefits. I've always been encouraged to be myself, and better than that, I've been celebrated for being myself. Old Navy believes that our business succeeds when everyone has the chance to stand as equals and thrive, which is why I'm here today. We remain committed to doing our part, not only to make continuous improvements across our company, but within our industry and within the communities where we serve. Old Navy was one of the founding partners of Open to All, an organization that unites and galvanizes businesses to take a stand for shared American values of fairness and equality. All of our stores proudly display the Open to All decal on our windows, so all who enter know that they are welcome to be themselves in our stores. We're also proud to be the first retailer to extend the Open to All pledge beyond the U.S. and into our stores in Mexico and Canada. We stand with you today in support of equal rights for all and commit to doing our part to continue to empower all employees and customers within our company and within our communities we serve. At Old Navy, everyone is welcome and everyone is family. This year, Old Navy celebrated its 25th birthday with a campaign focused on belonging. And in an industry so dependent upon trends, belonging has actually never been just a trend at Old Navy. It is a core part of who we are and who we welcome into our stores. I want to leave you with two easy words from our birthday that I believe ring true as we stand here and rally, so all people feel like they can bring their full selves to work. We belong. Say it with me. We belong. We belong. We belong. Thank you. Thank you, hon. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shabri West. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm a youth activist and youth resource leader with Advocates for Youth. I believe it is important to center voices of young, Black queer folks, and I'm honored to have this opportunity. I first want to say thank you for allowing me to speak today in all my Blackness, queerness, and fullness. I'm here today because everyone needs a way to support themselves and their families. No young person should have to fear that they can be fired just because of who they are. Discrimination is wrong, ridiculous, and rooted in hate. I'm 24, and my generation is the most likely to identify as LGBTQ. And no matter how we identify, we're the most likely to support LGBTQ folks as well. We're also trying to find work in a tough job market. The last thing we need is homophobes and transphobes making the job harder for us. The harsh reality is that nearly 2/3 of LGBTQ people report have experienced discrimination in their everyday lives. And unfortunately, there is not always enough allies to advocate in the workplace to protect and support them, especially when we do not have the law on our side. It's not right, and it is clearly attacked when employees can fire LGBTQ people for simply existing in their truth. The reality is especially challenging for our transgender siblings who are more vulnerable to discrimination and less likely to be hired. Unjust laws, hate, homophobia, transphobia, and racism creates a paralyzing fear for young LGBTQ and non-binary employees from existing in ways that are safe. Workplace discrimination and fear of discrimination has negative effects on LGBTQ employees in terms of wages, job opportunities, mental and physical health, productivity, and job satisfaction. We all employees should do is foster an environment where young LGBTQ non-binary employees are valued, protected, and empowered, whether at the local, state, or national level. The challenge for supporters of LGBT equality is to help people see and understand that anti-LGBTQ discrimination remains a real-life barrier to equality, equity, and opportunity for LGBTQ and non-binary people everywhere. We need to make sure our families, family members, neighbors, educators, and policymakers understand the truth and the impact of anti-LGBTQ laws and policies. Not yesterday, but today, right now. When? Now. When? Now. When? Now. Along with raising awareness and understanding about the foundation of these biases and the impacts. We need the law to protect everyone from discrimination, and we need that to include discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. According to the 14th Amendment, no state shall deny to equal protection to any person. Who? Any person. Who? Any person. Ban inclusive and sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression in employment practices is the best approach. In closing, that's why I stand here today before you, to make sure these laws are implemented in the justice system that's supposed to protect us all. Young people aren't going to allow this country to roll back employment protections. Today, I'm asking all of you, especially the justices of the Supreme Court, to remember that. Thank you.
Good morning. We are here today because we know that there is no right to discriminate, and we demand that the court recognize that truth. Say it with me. No right to discriminate. No right to discriminate. No right to discriminate. My name is Ian Palmquist. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm the Senior Director of Programs at Equality Federation. I get to work with incredible leaders in 44 statewide LGBTQ advocacy organizations every day. And I can tell you they all know how important it is that this court and Congress make clear that firing someone simply for being LGBTQ is wrong, is unacceptable, and it is illegal. Our state equality groups have been working tirelessly for decades to win hearts and minds and win state and local protections against discrimination in employment, in housing, and in public accommodations. And here's what I can tell you from that fight. We know that discrimination is real because we hear from the folks who experience it week after week. We know that discrimination disproportionately affects LGBTQ folks who are Black, brown, trans, non-binary, or immigrants. We know that these legal protections make a real difference. We know that these protections are good for business. And we know that the horror stories that opponents of equality keep saying will happen if we have these protections just aren't true. Because guess what? We've had these protections in states and cities around this country for years, and we've had these protections under federal court decisions for a long time now. Those scary stories just don't materialize. Now here's what else we know. We need clear, comprehensive protections from discrimination nationwide, and we need it now. When do we need it?
Now!
When do we need it?
Now!
When do we need it?
Now!
A patchwork of state and local laws has brought us a long way, but it just won't cut it. New Jersey's laws against housing discrimination may help a trans woman living in Camden get an apartment, but how is she going to pay for that apartment when she loses her job across the river in Pennsylvania just for being trans? Pennsylvania's state law won't protect her, and if the Trump administration and their right-wing cronies have their way in the cases before the court today, neither will federal law. There is no right to discriminate. The court must affirm that all LGBT people can work hard and support themselves and their families without fear of harassment or discrimination at work. And Congress and the states must finish the job by passing the Equality Act now. Thank you.
Hello, champions of equality. I am so grateful to see so many people turning out today. It is so inspiring to see you all in the crowd. I see fellow members of the LGBT community, many who've been fighting and active and out for years. And I also see so many friends and supporters who are standing with us today to send a message that the cases today being heard by the Supreme Court are critical and important and will shape our future for many years to come. I know why you're here today. You're here because this is a pivotal moment in history. Today, the Supreme Court finally has a chance to affirm our values as Americans and what we believe as a society about our friends and neighbors and how they should be treated. You're here today because we share a collective belief that every person should be treated with dignity and respect. And you're here today because that's what these cases are about. How we as a society treat our fellow Americans and whether or not discrimination based on sex should ever be allowed. It should not. With these cases today, the Supreme Court has a chance to affirm once and for all what so many lower courts, even those full of conservative judges, have already affirmed across the country in recent years. That LGBTQ people should be able to work hard, make a living, and support ourselves and our loved ones without fear of humiliation, harassment, or discrimination at work. At the end of the day, all hardworking people, regardless of whether or not we're LGBT, should be judged on whether or not we get the job done. No more and no less. But the reality is, millions of LGBT people in the United States have reported experiencing discrimination in their everyday lives and on the jobs. I look around the crowd here. Have any of you all ever experienced harassment or discrimination just because of who you are, who you love? Unfortunately, it is a universal experience for way too many people, especially transgender people, and especially transgender women of color. As a gay and transgender man myself, I know what it's like to live with constant fear. I've known accomplished professionals at the top of their careers who end up jobless merely because they start a transition on the job. I've known brilliant gay youth end up on the streets instead of at school or home or at work because they were rejected by their families and schools alike. And I've personally known what it feels like to experience harassment, anti-gay and anti-transgender harassment on the job, unfortunately at more than one job. No American who wants to work hard and support their family should fear harassment, discrimination, or even termination at work solely because of who we are. And that's why the Supreme Court must rule in favor of dignity and respect and our core American belief that everyone should be treated equally. But make no bones about it. No matter how the Supreme Court rules in the coming months, our work will not be done. Federal law still does not prohibit discrimination because of sex in critical areas like public places, restaurants, stores, hotels. That's why while we have our eyes on the court today, I also urge Congress to pass strong, comprehensive protections across the country to finally get the Equality Act passed and over the finish line so that we can ensure express and enduring protections for all LGBT people in all areas of life. In closing, please know, folks, you're not alone in this fight. You're here today, whether you're actually on the steps of the Supreme Court, the folks inside the Supreme Court, or those watching from home. And guess what? You are not alone. 70% of Americans stand with you. 70% of Americans, both Democrats and Republicans alike, believe that LGBTQ people should be protected from discrimination. That's why it's time for the Supreme Court and Congress to send a message. This is what the American people want. This is the direction our country needs to go in. It's time for more love, more acceptance, less fear, less discrimination. And that is what today's about. Celebrating love and acceptance and moving our country forward together towards a future where all Americans and all people, regardless of who we are, regardless who we love, regardless where we live, can live our lives with dignity and respect, free from all forms of discrimination. Thank you.
Good morning. Are we fired up? Are we fired up? I'm Justin Nelson. I'm the co-founder and president at the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And like my colleagues, we're here today to call on the Supreme Court to not only choose the history that is right for America, but to do it because it's right for our country, our businesses, and our long-term sustainability. You know, today is October 8th of 2019, but another date is on my mind, and that's April 15th of 2020. I will, for the 32nd year, file a U.S. income tax return. And you know how many times I have used the discrimination deduction? 0, because there's not one. Our taxes are the same as every other American's. Our taxes pay for the sidewalks that we stand on. They pave our roads, they build our bridges, they keep us safe. Yet we are discriminated against. We can get married in 50 states, but in more than half we can be fired. And if you're an LGBT business owner, in the same number, you can go in and be denied the credit you need to grow and scale your company. This, my friends, is not acceptable. If we have the same rights and responsibilities, if we must live under the same laws, we must be treated equally. And take a look at the building behind us. It says equal justice under the law. There are not parentheses that say, unless you're not straight. This is our country. This is our fight. It is our fight for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender Americans. For the nearly 30 trans people that have been killed this year alone that can't stand with us, that can't work, that can't start their businesses because we've legalized homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, racism. It's ridiculous. And we have to hold our elected officials to a higher accord. So know that we stand with you, that we're excited about this fight, that the justices must decide on the right side of history. And I'll end where I started. Are we fired up? Come on, are we fired up? All right, thank you all very much.
I got it. Hi, beautiful people. My name is Rachel Lazar, and I'm the president of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. I'm here representing our 300,000 supporters across the country who cherish our fundamental commitment to religious freedom. Our members include devout people of faith and fervent non-theists, all united in our belief that religious freedom is not a license to discriminate. In America, we're governed by our shared secular values and not the religious privilege views of some. In America, we should all be treated equally, no matter who we are, who we love, or what we believe. But that's not the America that Amy Stevens lives in. Her boss says he gets to fire her because her decision to be true to herself as a trans woman contradicted his religious beliefs. And it's not the America that Donald Zarda and Gerald Bostick experienced either. They were both fired for being gay. Today, we call on the Supreme Court to affirm that our equality and ability to fully participate in society should not hinge on our boss's religious beliefs or anyone else's. The religious freedom enshrined in our Constitution is meant to protect the right to practice any religion or no religion at all without harming others. But let's call out the truth. Emboldened religious extremists today are weaponizing religious freedom to turn back the clock on equality. It's relentless, it's exhausting, and the Supreme Court should make clear that it's against the law. Americans United is proud to join our many allies here today and every day to hold our country accountable to its promise of freedom and equality for all. I'm going to say our freedom and you say our rights. Our freedom. Our freedom. Our freedom. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. My name is Brian Bond. I'm Executive Director of the National PFLAG, the first and largest organization of LGBTQ plus parents, family, friends, and allies. I'm here today representing the 200,000 members of our organization, supporters across the country, fierce and loving parents, speaking out loudly and proudly in support of their LGBTQ plus kids, family, and friends. I'm proud to be flanked by two PFLAG National Board members, Kelly Brooks Haley from Maryland and Liz DeJesus from Pennsylvania. They are here today because, like me, they and their families will be directly impacted by the outcomes of these cases. Kelly and her wife, Ivy, who's right there, Ivy, shouldn't have to worry about having their wedding photos on their desk at work out of fear of being fired. Yet in 29 states, you can get married on Sunday, as you know, and get fired on Monday or evicted on Monday. That's not right. Liz has 3 sons, one of whom is gay and lives in Ohio, where he is not protected by discrimination. Nor is he protected from discrimination in Pennsylvania when he goes home to see his mom. That's not right. PFLAG National was proud to partner on an amicus brief with the Trevor Project and Family Equality, in which we shared the story of a successful transgender executive, a Latinx man, who was fired for disclosing his gender identity on the job. That's not right. We reached out to PFLAGgers across the country and received hundreds of stories. Among them, we heard from a PFLAG mom whose daughter coached a sports team at a major university. When the coach told her team that she was going to have a baby with her female partner, the university found out about it and fired her, putting an end to her winning career. That is not right. Excuse me. And that's why we must keep telling those stories. We must urge the Senate to pass the Equality Act. We must pass state legislation because 29 states still have laws that don't treat LGBTQ people fairly. And we must keep at this every single day because the stakes have never been higher. So, Chief Justice Roberts, you grew up in Indiana, where discrimination against LGBTQ plus people is currently still the law of the land. I urge you to think about the people you may have grown up with, your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, your co-congregants, the things you want for your own children and loved ones, job security, and a home where they can feel safe are the same things we all want for ours. We urge you to think about all families when you consider these arguments before you today, and do the right thing. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Andy Mara, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a proud trans woman of color, and I am also the executive director of the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund, one of 3 national trans rights organizations in this country. Today, we are proud to show our support for Miss Amy Stevens in her case before the Supreme Court. Amy was a model employee, simply just doing her job. But instead of rewarding her hard work and dedication, her boss fired her, simply for being who she is. Now, Amy's employer is asking the Supreme Court for it to rule that it's perfectly legal under federal law to fire people for being trans. And all of us here know today that is simply just wrong. It is illegal, and sadly it's all too common in this country. Amy is just one of countless trans people who have faced discrimination on the job, and this is not an isolated incident. Trans people, particularly black and brown trans people in this country, continue to be at risk, and in addition to facing tremendous rates of violence, 30% of trans people have reported being fired, denied a promotion, or of experiencing mistreatment in the workplace because of their gender identity. The rates of discrimination for trans people of color are even higher, and that is simply not acceptable. That's why Tilda filed a friend of the court brief in this case with the support of more than 30 local and state-based trans organizations across this country, and our brief makes 3 clear arguments. 1, Amy Stevens' abrupt and illegal firing from her job is a straightforward case of sex discrimination under Title VII. 2, yes, that's right. 2, there is both medical and legal consensus that the category of sex is comprised of multiple factors, including gender identity. And finally, 3, the U.S. Supreme Court case, Pricewaterhouse versus Hopkins, established the legal precedent of sex stereotyping that also applies to Amy's wrongful termination. And let me be clear, the only confused and misguided folks that are here today are our opponents on the other side of the aisle. The Supreme Court now holds the fate of countless trans people in its hands. No one in this country should be fearful of losing their job simply because of who they are, and we hope the court affirms existing case law to ensure that everyone in this country is able to maintain a job free of discrimination. But let me be clear, no matter what the Supreme Court does, we will keep fighting. We say no to injustice. Say no. No to injustice. No. We say no to discrimination. No. And we say yes to LGBTQ plus equality. Yes. With the Trump administration's relentless attacks on our protections, passing the Equality Act is vital. We need comprehensive federal protections across the nation. We must stay vigilant. The time is now. We will persevere, and we will achieve trans justice. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Yang, and I served as chair and a commissioner of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission during the Obama administration. Thank you. And I am fired up today because we cannot stand by and watch people get fired simply because of who they are. When I was at the EEOC in 2015, we studied this issue carefully and concluded in the Baldwin decision that based on Supreme Court precedent and a plain reading of the law, discrimination based on sexual orientation is discrimination because of sex. Over 7 years ago, in 2012, in the Macy decision, the EEOC reached a similarly straightforward conclusion that discrimination because a person is transgender is sex discrimination. For that reason, the EEOC sued Harris Funeral Homes, contending that it illegally fired Amy Stevens simply because she intended to transition from male to female. The Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit agreed. 2 years ago, EEOC filed a brief in the Second Circuit explaining that it was illegal to fire Donald Zarda from the job he loved as a skydiving instructor simply because he was gay. Overturning its prior precedent, the Second Circuit agreed that the most natural reading of Title VII's prohibition on discrimination because of sex is that it extends to sexual orientation. Although earlier case law carved out an exclusion in Title VII for discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, this reading finds absolutely no support in the statute. Indeed, many of these early cases developed in the 1970s and 80s, where same-sex relationships were criminalized in many states.
deep-seated cultural biases prevented a straightforward application of Title VII. The Trump administration is urging the court to take away protections that impact every aspect of our lives, from employment and education to housing and healthcare. But can we turn the clock back and legalize discrimination? No, we cannot go back. I am grateful to my former colleagues at the EOC and across the Obama administration for joining us in a Friend of the Court brief explaining that EOC did not read sexual orientation and gender identity into this statute. It applied the plain language of the law and refused to rely any longer on discredited precedents to read sexual orientation and gender identity out of the statute. The Trump administration's about-face has given the courts whiplash, but across our nation, Americans know that we must be on the right side of history. I'm often reminded of Justice Kennedy's words that the nature of injustice is that we may not always see it in our own times. Throughout history, as our nation evolves, our understanding of the meaning of equality has progressed. Today, the court has an opportunity to right the wrong of historic bias. Congress has already spoken by prohibiting discrimination based on sex. Now, it is the duty of the court to apply that clear language to find that Title VII protects against sex discrimination because an individual is LGBT. Thank you so much.
That'd be great. Thank you. Good morning. I am Jack Moline, president of Interfaith Alliance, dedicated to protecting faith and freedom, your faith and your freedom. Listen, I'm here to acknowledge what many of you are uncomfortable saying. But maybe because I'm a rabbi, a conservative rabbi, I can get away with it on your behalf. We are here today for one reason only, and that's because some of our fellow Americans, Americans who profess a faith that is protected by the First Amendment, are trying to manipulate their faith into public policy. And let me say it clearly, that is an abuse of faith and a violation of the Constitution. Can I get an amen? Amen. My friend Reverend Galen Gingrich likes to say that the price of America is that when it comes to the law, the Constitution has authority over Scripture. There is no constitutional rationale to give personal religious belief precedence over the law. Can I get another amen? Amen. But lest you think that there's no religious rationale to affirm equality under the law, please let me share with you a midrash, a Jewish lesson that has parallels in many traditions. Our sages teach that when human beings mint coins, they use a mold, and every coin they stamp out emerges identical and of equal value. But in the very beginning, we learned that God used the first human being as a mold for all the generations to come. And each generation, each person, each of us, just as the master crafter intended, turned out unique, but likewise of equal value. Amen? Amen. We must use our faith not to cast judgment on others, or harm, or restrict their ability to be full and equal participants in every aspect of our constitutionally protected society, but rather to affirm their uniqueness and celebrate our equal worth. No matter what you believe, no matter who you love, no matter whether you pray, no matter where the source of your inspiration is found, and that's what protecting faith and freedom is all about. Give me one last amen.
How you doing? All right, I'm gonna need you to be a little bit louder because we got some not so friendly folks over here. I need you to scream louder than them so we drown them out. How you doing? All right, my name is Nikisha Lewis. I'm the National Director of Civil Rights at the AFL-CIO. I come here today because it is literally my job to protect the civil rights of all workers. Not just some workers, but all workers. I also come here as an advocate and activist with the National Black Justice Coalition, the nation's only LGBTQ civil rights organization. Understand that as I'm here, 400 years since the first enslaved Africans came to this nation, 55 years since the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, 50 years since the Stonewall Rebellion gave us the rise of the equality movement. And yet here I am in 2019, feeling like time has either stood still or it's gone backwards. Here I am as a Black lesbian woman, praying that my God-given rights, the rights for which my ancestors and many of yours so valiantly fought, will be protected in that courtroom today. There's something wrong with this picture. There is absolutely no reason why the basic human right of every single person living in this country to be sure that they can work free of fear and free of harm and harassment. There is no reason why that should be called into question. And yet, without equivocating, this administration continues to demonstrate day in and day out that they are in an absolute commitment to harming already marginalized people. And so if this court today or in the days to come dismantles the protections for LGBTQ and same-gender loving people, let us be crystal clear that it will be the most severely impacted people, Black people living at the intersections of multiple already oppressed identities. It will be those people that are most severely harmed. And so, my friends, if you leave here today and you don't remember the words of the great Black lesbian mother, warrior poet, the great Audre Lorde, who once wrote that there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. So as we take our stand today, I'm here to remind you that this fight, it's not just an equality fight. This, my friends, this is a racial justice fight. This, my people, this is an economic justice fight. And ultimately, my siblings, be clear, this is the civil rights fight of our moment. As the torchbearers of a rich and long legacy of civil rights, we must ask ourselves today, what are we willing to do and how far are we willing to go to ensure that every generation, this one, the next one, and the 7 generations to come, that they do not find themselves years from now in this very same spot, fighting this very same fight for the rights that we should have won, or even worse, for the rights that we will have lost. As we raise our voices today and trust the work of our comrades in that courtroom, we must also do the work to ensure the passage of the Equality Act. You see, I'm a little bit young, but I still subscribe to some old school civil rights theology. And I believed in the age-old 3-pronged strategy for justice, that we must litigate, we must agitate, but we must never forget to legislate. And so again, raise your voices today, but get to work tomorrow. Make sure that we move the Equality Act from beyond the House into federal legislation. We cannot wait. We cannot allow our rights to be rolled back. Thank you.
My name is Ashley Marie Preston, and I am here on behalf of Black trans women. And I'm going to go ahead and give it to you straight up with no chaser, because I refuse to subscribe to respectability politics authored by a nation that does not respect us. We cannot continue pretending that whenever our human rights are rolled back, Black trans women are not the first ones to be impacted by these decisions. In 2004, I had a job and I transitioned on the job, and I was soon after harassed and bullied to the point that I was fired. When I went to HR for protections, they did not protect me. When I went to feminist organizations, they did not protect me. When I went to LGBTQ organizations, they did not protect me. When I went to religious organizations, they did not protect me. So I ended up being homeless on the streets of Hollywood. I couldn't get into a shelter because the women wouldn't take me in because of my assigned sex at birth. I couldn't even get into a men's shelter because my visibility would disrupt the milieu. So I ended up engaging in survival sex work, and soon after got addicted to methamphetamine because I had to numb myself to all of the gut-wrenching things that I had to do in the name of survival. So it's important that when we talk about these issues, when we talk about human rights, that we understand that Black trans women are disproportionately impacted. And many of you know this because most of the trans people who have been murdered this year have been Black trans women. So when I show up to this space and have conversations about equity and human rights, it's not a question, it is a demand. I am here to let the people in Washington, D.C. know that if you are aiming legislation at our head, get out while you can, because we are about to shake the earth beneath this administration so vigorously that victory comes crashing down from the rafters. We are here to take back our dignity. We are here to take back our respect. We are here to reclaim our lives. We are here to reclaim our future. And for the other people that are on the other side, the feminists, if your feminism is not intersectional, it's trash. If your feminism does not include Black trans women, it is trash. It is cognitive dissonance, because when the most vulnerable among us are liberated, everyone will be, and not until then, and that's that on that. So as we stand here today, let us remember the people that came before us, because while our ancestors did it, we can do it again. While they did it for some, we're going to do it for all. And we stand here today because we name it, we claim it, and every time they push back, we're ready to bring it. So I ask you all to please stand firm, because the rumble that we hear in the distance, that's not lightning, that's your legacy. So to the people that showed up that are ready to fight, know that you are not doing it alone. Know that we are here, but it is important that we reach down into the trenches, into the margins, and lift those up who are disproportionately impacted, because Black trans women put our bodies on the line, our lives on the line, our health on the line, much like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera did. So these organizations who are with us, we appreciate your solidarity, but we also encourage you to start elevating those who are in the trenches, who are actually doing the work, because we don't need a 501c3 attached to our survival. This is life or death for us. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is not something that we do in our pastime, or something that we do just so we can hashtag it and get likes. This is our lives on the line. So if you believe in liberation, if you believe in survival, if you believe in justice, if you believe in victory, let me hear you give it up.
Yes, that'll be great. Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Nunes, and I'm the Vice President of the National Organization for Women. And I come today as a feminist ally who believes in intersectionality and believes in the rights for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, and the rights that you do not deserve to be discriminated for your working environments. So before I talk, I want to reach out and speak to all the allies that are out here. And I want you to really take a time to think about and imagine being a child and growing up and being told that you have a right to grow up and be whoever you want to be, and to live your best life, and to choose how you want to live and be proud of who you are. And then I want you to imagine being that same adult that decides to become true to themselves and live their best life, only to be told, wait, this does not apply to you. That is what many of our LGBTQ sisters and brothers are experiencing today and being told every day. And that is why we are here today on the Supreme Court steps, demanding justice, demanding restoration of their rights, because they are experiencing discrimination on all types of levels. If we look around, we see a lot of signs. And right here behind us, this building has one sign that says equal justice under the law. Well, if we truly, truly believe in equal justice under the law, then we believe that we have to protect LGBT workers' rights in their employment, and they should not experience sex discrimination because someone feels that they can decide how they should identify themselves, how they should be male or female, or how they should just choose to be. We know that the meaning is very important, and we know that there are 3 cases going on right now. And if the Title VII Civil Rights Act equally applies to everyone, then we will fight and we will demand justice. And that we will know that there is no difference, there is no separation in humanity. This is a human rights issue, and we must all support it. Our laws must be clear. Employees cannot discriminate against anyone because they don't conform to their employer's ways or identity or their belief system. We must understand that if we overturn this law today, overturn this ruling, that it is causing errors that we repeat in our history. And it will just encourage other hate groups to challenge human rights for anyone they deem inferior. We will not allow that today. LGBT rights are civil rights, so we will push, we will fight, we will organize, and we will defend until it is equal justice under the law. Thank you.
Yeah, you can. Hello, everybody. My name is Karen Kendra Holmes, and I'm a former soldier with the Maryland Defense Force. A soldier in 2012 received NCO Soldier of the Year for the state of Maryland. Also, by the State Guard Association of the United States, in 2013, I got Soldier of the Year of the country out of 23,000 soldiers in 24 states. We are here today talking about fighting. Well, I want you to know I'm in your corner fighting for you every day. And we're going to let them know inside that it's them against us. And are you ready to rumble today? Let me hear you say yes. Yes. Are you ready to fight? Yes. All right, we're not going to give up our rights for no reason at all. We're here to give human rights for all of us, equal rights for each and every one of us. I'm telling you, we don't sit down for nobody. The more they knock us down, the bigger we get up and start fighting again. We stand up for all rights, for human rights, for everything. Right now, the more we keep rising together, the more things are going to happen for this country in the right way. We need to be ready to fight all the time and let them people know that we have rights just as much as they do. We want to make sure that if they're unhappy, we're happy. We don't want them to tear us down because they're unhappy. We want to be happy. We transition to be happy. But because of the way society is treating us, we end up losing our lives, our family, our homes, our children, our jobs. We don't want that no more. We want a job that we don't have to be on unemployment working for nothing, all right? So I want you to let them know we're here. We're going to be standing, rising all the time and make sure that nobody takes our rights away. Are you ready to rise up? Yeah. Are you ready to rise up? Yeah. Are you ready to fight? Yeah. All right, let's keep going, all right? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyrone Hanley. I'm Senior Policy Counsel at the National Center for Lesbian Rights. We are here today because we know what's at stake. Anti-LGBTQ employment discrimination is real and it has harmful consequences, including being unable to afford the basics like housing, food, transportation, and healthcare. Despite how we're portrayed in media, LGBTQ people, especially those who are black and brown, are more likely to live in poverty and be food insecure than non-LGBTQ people. And that's why LGBTQ families are more likely to rely on vital programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and housing assistance. Employment discrimination also means not being hired and earning a living by turning to industries like sex work and the drug trade in order to survive, only then to face criminalization and violence from our racist criminal legal system. Let's be clear, the decision in these cases will have ramifications beyond employment. They will also impact anti-discrimination laws are interpreted in other areas including education, housing, and healthcare. For poor LGBT people and families, the stakes could not be higher. While LGBT equality is not framed as an economic justice issue, it is an economic justice issue. No matter what happens with these cases, we will continue to fight for our people and economic justice because that's what we're called to do. Thank you.
My name is Hudson Taylor. I'm the founder and executive director of Athlete Ally, an organization working to end homophobia and transphobia in sports. When I started Athlete Ally, I was a 3-time Division I All-American wrestler and a theater major. As a heterosexual, cisgender man, I saw firsthand how sport pushes rigid ideas of what it means to be a man, a woman, an athlete, and how those ideas and assumptions hurt anyone who doesn't fit into those neat boxes. Homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, and other manifestations of discrimination don't just hurt the people they target. They hurt all of us. These attitudes are the mechanisms through which people are denied their humanity. They are the beliefs that allow people to be treated as less than, to be fired for who they are or who they love. I'm here today because anyone who cares about the full equality of the LGBTQ community can't afford to be silent. The stakes have never been higher. I'm here today because Amy Stevens spent nearly 20 years serving those around her with kindness and compassion during the most challenging time of their lives, only to be fired for telling her employers that she is a woman. If Amy loses her case, it means that anyone who doesn't look, act, or dress in a narrowly defined way can be legally discriminated against. It would mean that every transgender American could be fired for being who they are. If Gerald Bosak and the family of David Zarda lose their cases, it would mean that anyone can be fired under federal law based on their sexual orientation. Personally, I don't want to live in a world where anyone is forced between choosing their job or keeping their job and being open about who they are. No matter what the Supreme Court decides, it's time for all of us to take a stand, not only on LGBTQ people to fight alone for LGBTQ equality, just as it's not on people of color to be the only ones calling out white supremacy. We all need to be better allies to one another. This starts with a simple conversation, person to person. And so my challenge to each of us here today is this. Pick 3 people in your life to talk to about these cases. Tell them why equality and fairness matter to you personally, and listen to what they have to say. Progress moves at the speed of trust, and we can only begin to build that trust through honest and open dialogue. Both sport and society are human inventions, which means we have the power to shape them for the better. Together, we can build a world that welcomes and includes all of us exactly as we are. Thank you.
Sure, that'd be great. Tall people problems. Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Collins. I'm a retired NBA basketball player, and I'm an ambassador for NBA Cares. It means a lot to be here today to help shift the course of history. I used to live here in DC, less than 2 miles away in Judiciary Square. In 2013, I was a closeted athlete playing for the Washington Wizards. In March of that year, DOMA and Prop 8 were being argued in the Supreme Court. I can't tell you how much it pained my soul to stay quiet and not speak out during such a decisive moment. Now, 6 years later, I don't want to be quiet anymore. I refuse. I'm here to support my community, the LGBTQ community. As the cases before us today make clear, if there aren't protections in place, people are going to be forced back into the closet. Without them, the government is telling us that we simply don't matter, that we are less than, and that's simply not true. I don't want anyone else to live a life of hiding who they are, to be like I was. I'm here to speak up not just on behalf of David Bostic and Amy Stevens' behalf, but for every person who is afraid to use their voice, position, or platform to enact change. Change that shows the best of who we are as Americans, the best of who we can be. David Bostic was just living his life. He joined a local gay softball team, and that became the mechanism that outed him, that ultimately got him fired. This case speaks to the rights of all LGBTQ people to be able to be their full selves in all areas of their lives, without having to fear that the job they love will be taken away from them. Amy Stevens should still have her job. The loss of her case would mean that trans women can be fired simply for finding value in their identity. It is a ruling that would affect all trans people, and especially Black trans women, and also trans women of color who face intersecting levels of discrimination when seeking employment. They are confronted with a disproportionate amount of violence, harassment, and discrimination, and are increasingly robbed of fair access to health services and career opportunities. We must put a stop to this, and today we can. We have to continue to step forward. We have to continue to be visible. We cannot go backwards. We must charge ahead. Given where we are in this country with the constant attacks and dog whistling that comes out from our current administration, to the various groups who seek to divide the nation through means of hate, all of us, every single American has to step forward. Every last one of us must use our voice to stand up for what's morally right and to be counted. But it's more than that too. It's not solely about being counted, but knowing that we count, and that we have the right to live our lives as best we can. The American I know is one of empathy and inclusion. That is the America that I want to live in. That is the one that I want my nieces and nephews, our next generation, to live in. I don't want them to live in a country where they have to be afraid to be who they are. And they won't be able to do that if there are laws in place telling them that they can be fired because they've chosen to live boldly and truthfully. We're here today for a very simple reason. You should not be fired for being a member of the LGBTQ family, for essentially living fully in your truth. If we begin to subscribe to those kind of toxic ideals, we betray the very foundation of this country, one that grants each citizen with the liberty and freedom to be who they want, to actualize their full self without unjust consequences. So today, perhaps more than any day before this one, it is incumbent on all of us to speak up and speak out. Thank you.
Can I get a round of applause for all of you? Y'all are beautiful and brilliant. Thank you for shining your light and being the light here. We want to get some engagement from you all. So what the words behind me says, don't roll back our rights. I want all of you to say it loud, clear, and proud so that they can hear us inside of the Supreme Court. Don't roll back. Our rights. Our rights. Don't roll back. Don't roll back. Our rights. Our rights. I need a little attitude with it. Get the neck roll going. Don't roll back. Don't roll back. Our rights. Our rights. Don't roll back. Don't roll back. Our rights. Our rights. All right. Now I want to hear you say protect workers' rights. Protect workers' rights. Protect workers' rights. Protect workers' rights. Let's add some LGBTQ in there. Protect LGBTQ workers' rights. Protect LGBTQ workers' rights. Protect LGBTQ workers' rights. Protect LGBTQ workers' rights. Now say it fast 10 times. I'm just kidding. All right, y'all. The folks who've been speaking have been phenomenal. You all have been phenomenal. Continue to stay with us. We want to be able to cheer on our champions. And so I want a big reminder. Some of you have been chanting this already this morning, but I want to hear really loudly, loud for everybody in this area to hear that trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights.
Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights.
Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. Trans rights are human rights. All right, let's do this one. Trans women are women. Let's say it loud for the people in the back. Say it loud for the people in the back. Trans women are women. 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 All right. Woo! Got to make sure the people in the back can hear it. You know what I'm saying? So I do want to we got a couple announcements before we get back to the regularly scheduled programming. And the first is that we really want you all to stay, because we have some special guests. The plaintiffs are going to be coming out along with the lawyers to talk specifically with us about how everything went in there and to give you some of their feedback and love for you all being here and being in solidarity with them while they're fighting the good fight. I'm going to pass it on to my brilliant colleague, Brian Silva from NEAT, to give another announcement.
Real quick, we don't want it to stop today. We know a lot's going on in the court. And so tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, there's a virtual town hall that you can all join where we'll have the lawyers and others talking about what happened in the case, analysis, and what we need to do from here. So you can go to ourdayincourt.org/town hall. You can do it on your phone right now. It's ourdayincourt.org/town hall. Thank you. Stay here. Join us tonight.
Hello, my name is Victoria L. Burson. I am the senior pastor of MCC Baltimore. Y'all give a shout out to Baltimore and all the metropolitan community churches all over the world under Prophet Troy Perry. And also I serve as a pastor of the council under the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries with Bishop Yvette Flunder. All right. I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. Are you sick and tired? Of being sick and tired. All the players, the haters over there. I am a black, same-gender, loving woman, and I like it. Amen. And I am tired of the opposition trying to perpetuate a false narrative that asserts that there is division between what the Bible says about those whom God loves, and God loves everybody. That's right. And so I'm here to tell you about an old antiquity proverbial saying that says, let justice roll down like a mighty stream of water, and when water flows, it flows on everybody. Come on, somebody. It flows on everybody. It drips on the gay, the lesbian, the transgender men and women. It drips on gender non-conforming. It falls on everybody. No matter who you love, God loves everybody. No more hate, but love. Say it with me. No more hate. No more hate. No more hate. No more discrimination, but no more discrimination, but God loves me. God loves me. I came up here with a program, but I'm telling you, as a same gender loving clergy person, that God loves you, and there are churches and faith centers and movements around this city and close and far away that love you and that will affirm you and will be able to go toe to toe with anybody who say God doesn't. Thank you.
Yeah, please. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Thank you and good afternoon. Special